Hey, it's Don, the auction professor. Today is Sunday, so we're going to do another What's Sold on eBay. Last one I did, I added all the categories into the individual items. I'm going to do that again because I did get a lot of people that said that that was very helpful. But I will include some more items, a little more than last time. I'll try to do 25 or 30 always, just to keep the quantity up. And as well, I will holler out the actual categories. But we're going to go to the screen, and I'm going to show you some items that we sold this week. Okay, so today, as usual, I just picked some random items. I tried not to pick too many of the same type of items so you can get a better idea on the actual category. This first one here is in jewelry and watches, vintage and antique jewelry, and then under costume. And then I centered it on the actual category area, which would be retro vintage, 1930s to 1980s, and then other retro costume jewelry. This is just not in a standard category because it's a Kate pin set. And I did add that it has a patent date, which puts this in the 1940s, 50s here. I didn't go look it up, but I've seen enough patents to know that this is an earlier one. It did sell for $34.50, so I was fairly happy. It was up for about a year, so I've got, roughly 60 cents in the listing. This $1 invested into buying it, and we got, 28 to say 30 bucks on take home after that. So anyway, let's move on to the next one here. And on these here, now I had a rash of these selling. I'm not sure why, but I put these in the collectibles, radio, phonograph, TV, and phone section, and then phonographs / accessories, and then Edison phonographs. Edison cylinder records are what these are. They go to an Edison cylinder record player, so that seems to always be the best set. More people look for these type of things in this section than they would look for in, say, the record section itself, because most people don't know that these are records. Technically, they think there's something other. But these are just literally records, and it even says on the container. Just like player pianos are basically like a single, like a 45, basically they're considered. They actually are in the media category because they are reproduced just as if it was a song on a record. But you plug it in, and you pop it into your player. The piano player rolls, and they play just like it would, one of these cylinders here. So anyway, $14.50. This did sell for. And again, I sold a bunch of those, and I'm not really sure what the deal was this week, but I sold way more, like 6 or 7 of those this week alone than I have sold, pretty much the last month, all within just a few days. All different people, too. So, they come and they go on these kind of sales here. Next one here is collectibles. I put it under tools, hardware, and locks, and then tools and mechanics. This is technically an auto part, but it's cheaper to list in the collectibles section. And it is technically collectible because of the age, so, it's not like falsely listing in there. But if you listed this in car section, I would have had to have paid for it constantly more so. This is included in my freebie, so if I want to switch it around or something, it's no big deal. And this was up for like 2 days, and it sold straight out $34.50. Top price on this, which I was actually kind of surprised. But anyway, because none of these have sold that high, so I don't know why mine sold that high. Maybe it's just slightly different, or it looks more complete. I'm not really sure. I don't even know what this does. I can guess that it probably cleans the cylinder where your pistons go into, actually in your block in your engine. But, that's just a guess, because I've never messed with stuff like that. Now this one here, I've talked about this, and I sold a bunch of comics too. I'm not showing but just a couple lots of them here. I pay $1 a piece or less for these common 15 and 12-cent covers. This one went in collectibles, comics, Bronze Age, which is 1970 to 83, superheroes, and then literally the Thor section. And this person bought several from us. In some of these, there were some folks that bought some comic books from England, just singles, and it was almost as much for them to pay for shipping as it was for the comics. So I'm just telling you, the shipping is not a concern on some of these comics. If somebody wants something and they're a collector, they're going to pay for it. And I got 2 of these lots sold to the same person, and I think I took like 49 bucks out of the 2 lots. And again, I've got like 50 cents or $1 in each of these. That's $12 most at $1 a piece. I returned on my investment is almost 50. So, after fees and all, I'm making, say, $34, $35, and that's after the cost into them, somewhere in that range. So anyway, let's move on. The other one again, here it is. just so you can see. And again, they went to the same person. I sell a lot of the comic lots like that to the same person. So, and I try to bundle them together so it's like all Thor or all Iron Man or Spider-Man or whatever the case. That helps them sell. And especially if they're in the same categories, they'll show up later on in the same search. So if a person's looking for just Thor, I put them in the Thor section. They're going to show up, especially if I list them together. They'll see mine real quickly together, and they'll maybe be more prone to buy several lots. And that happens all the time. This one, collectibles, advertising, merchandise and memorabilia, and then labels. And this one I took 20 for. I even know where this one's at. We lived in Florida for a while. Lakeland's not so far from where we used to live. And, I even know where Mass Avenue is. So anyway, let's move on here to the next one. And again, some of these sit up for a while, and I'm not really worried about that. This was a cheapo purchase for $1. I put them in toys, hobbies, die-cast and toy vehicles, and then cars, trucks, and vans, and then vintage manufacturing. Now, these could have went in a train section or something, but they're die-cast, and the people who collect these Midge usually just like the die-cast stuff. Midge mostly made cars and stuff, so it was kind of odd to run across these. And I literally only have $1 into them because of the condition. It's from one of my pickers. And they did sell for the $14.99. They were up for a year, so I've got about $2 at the very most, like $1.60 into listing these. After fees and all, and the price of the item, we're still making over $10. So, and they paid shipping as always for every item that I do. The buyer pays shipping. And I sold some other things too. I sold some clothing. I sold a nice fox fur coat yesterday. For 3 times what I paid for it. And we bought this actually for my wife to wear. She just didn't like it after we had it for a while, so we sold it. So, again, I'm not showing you any of the clothing, but we did sell a real nice fur last night that pretty much, made us some pretty good profit on it, because it's a real fox fur that we sold. But anyway, this one was up for a while, so like maybe 80 cents worth of listing, I would have to say. I listed this one in collectibles, bottles and insulators, bottles, modern, which is from 1900 till now, and then flasks. And this one actually had some damage. Let me see if I can, yeah, right there. You can see the split on the bottom, but it's pretty solid. It displays nicely. There's people who just collect flasks. This one might have been someone from Torrington. I don't remember where they came from, but I think we got like 12 out of it at the end of the day. And again, I put it up high. I have no idea. With the damage condition, it was just pot luck. I've got 50 cents or $1 into this item. No more than that, because I never spend more than $1 on something like this. I'd just pass on it if it's over $1, because it's going to be something that's going to set for a little while. And it's not, say, pot luck, but I'm taking a chance either way, even at $1. I know some people say it's $1, take a chance. I just don't do the chances on $1 because it only takes a second to look up these things even. And I probably didn't even look this one up, honestly, because I buy these flasks. Flasks, for the most part, do sell. But anyway, let's move on. And this could have went in the barware section as well, too. And it might have sold, comparable-wise there, too. So anyway, let's move on to the next one. Now, I picked up a bunch of transportation ones, and I do believe I showed these in a haul. Just a postcard. I took $14.50. It wasn't up very long. And this is collectibles, postcards, U.S. states, cities, and towns, and then Indiana, which is where this was shot or produced at. So anyway, it's a decent one, $14.50, dollar or less into purchasing that item. So, and then here's another one of these. As I said, I sold a bunch. I've only thrown a couple in here, and I wasn't planning on throwing any more, but I guess I missed this one. I took 10 on it. I've talked about these before. They're so hit and miss. I never would do these on auction either, because you can list them up for an auction and maybe not sell them all. These are something that you're going to have to sit on for a little while, no matter what, unless they're super, super rare and there's a bunch of people on. I have never had any luck in all these years, even when I get hundreds of these. And sometimes I do get hundreds of them. And I have a box of them right now with like 75 in it that I haven't even bothered to list as of yet. Just for space-wise on the area where I have these at on my already listed section. So anyway, these will be listed shortly because I did sell a bunch and I'm almost down to a spot where I can, double my amount in the shelf there. So anyway, $10 as I said. Again, same section: collectibles, radio, phonograph, TV, and phone, and then in the phonograph and accessories, and then Edison phonographs. Again, I don't list these in records for the most part. This specific type of cylinder records, anyway. So. And again, I've paid for those like 10 times over, maybe even more than that. It's been a while. Now, I showed these in a haul, and I talked about these. Collectibles, advertising, and then the food and beverage section, and then dairy, and there's actually a section, believe it or not, for bottle caps. These are what pogs are, and I've talked about these semi-extensively not too long ago. I don't mind, selling them one at a time. You saw the bag if you've seen the video on the haul. I've got like 150 of this specific one. I've got nothing into them almost at this point. I've sold several of them, including a couple locals. And, I've got all my money back out of them now. And I've only sold, as I said, just like a handful of these. So I've got hundreds of this one and the other one that I got with this. So I took $22.50 on it, plus they paid shipping. It's just a little piece of cardboard. So, and who knows what'll happen with these at the end. And even if I only sell like 2 or 3 more and then just junk the other ones together, I've still more than doubled my money on this purchase. So, I don't worry if I buy in bulk and then I can't sell all the bulk, because eventually I'll just, I'll sell a few more over time. And then I might just bulk them together in a big lot and let somebody else think they can make a bunch of money on them and buy them that way. So, or sell them that way anyway, I should say. And that ploy works. It's just like when I can't sell some things, I sell stuff at garage sales or I'll take them down to the auction. We haven't done a garage sale in a year or two, but, that's what we've done in the past. These days, I pretty much put them at auction because it seems I can not have to worry about all the hassle for, a garage sale. Last garage sale, we made like 12 or 1,500 on the collectibles aspect of it. So, I can't really complain on the garage sale, but it is a lot of work, and then it takes away from my online stuff I do. So it's the only reason I haven't done much more on the garage sales. It's just so much easier and less time consuming to just take a bunch of boxes down and drop them off at the auction, let somebody else deal with everything else from it, and then I just get a check from it anyway. So let's move on to the next one. Now, this one was up for like 70 cents worth of listing. I'm just trying to give you a dollar-wise. This was $1 purchase. I got it with some buttons, actually. And it's a brooch, a pin. It's definitely Bakelite. You can look this one up. It shows up occasionally. And you can even test these. But this one went in jewelry and watches, vintage and antique jewelry, costume, and then retro vintage 1930s through 80s, and then pins and brooches. So anyway, and this one did sell for $24.50 I took on this one. Pardon me on that one. Let's move on to the next one here. Now, I've sold a ton of fabric, and I've talked about it here and there. Maybe next time I get a haul, I'll show you the hauls. And I get them in sections usually from like overruns and stuff. And sometimes there's auctions, or you can actually go to, like Joann Fabrics and stuff on one of their clearance days and get some nice fabric that can be sold fairly quickly. This one goes in craft and fabric. And that's usually where I list all these. And it's a fairly decent sized panel, as you can see, 56 inches by 72. People cut these up and they'll make book covers and, pillows and just odds and ends out of these. This one went for $30. And these are things that I pay like $1 or $2 for at max on these. And it's kind of hard to display them too, but the ones with imagery on it, like this, these bright colored, just nice looking patterns are what sells for us the most. And I do sell quite a few of these anyway, so let's see here. This one here was listed in collectibles, advertising, merchandise and memorabilia, Victorian trade cards, and then other Victorian trade cards. And that's where I list most every Victorian trade card, print ad, or anything like that. This one was up for maybe a week or so, 5 cents in the listing, and it did sell at full price, $18.50. Now, a lot of people will look these cards up, these specific ones from Arm & Hammer, and think that they don't go for much because the majority of them don't seem to go for that much. But I usually put these up $14.50 to $18.50 across the board, every one, and I've got probably 100 of these up, and they'll sit there for a little while. Then one day somebody will come by and buy a bunch of them. This person bought a bunch, and they won't even quibble on the price. People that want to finish off sets, that's why I do it that way. And after a while, then I'll mark them down a little bit. But usually I'll crank out in the first, say, month, I'll sell, if I list 100 of these cards of various different series, because there's series of these. There's tons of different series. There's probably like 20 different series of these with 60 cards in each set of those series. So there's a ton of these. But I only mess with the pre-1900 ones. You'll have to just get the gist on these, on knowing which ones are older and which ones aren't. I can't explain that in just a few minutes. There's a lot of stuff on these Arm & Hammer cards. The first series usually sells the best. I've had some of those. They're a different size. Some of these have like a coupon on the bottom. Some of these have this layout on the bottom as well, too, where a coupon used to be. It just depends on which kind you get on these, on the value. But these typical ones, as I said, $14.50 to $18.50. And I do sell a bunch, quite often. At least every month I sell 10 or 15 of these. So I don't worry if they sit for a little while because, the residual income, I have nothing into these. I can buy them in bulk. I can buy a stack of these, like a card set at a trade card show sometimes for like $15 because people just don't want to mess with these early ones, or it's not in their genre of collectibles or their niche. So anyway, this is obviously collectibles, postcards, U.S. states, cities, and towns, and then California. I took 30 on this one here. It was a good postcard. I didn't have it up very long by the number. And I know people say, why don't you use the special line you can put in there, special SKU number? It's just easier not messing around, and then this is easier for anybody. And I can instantly tell. I don't have to click any buttons. I don't have to sort. I don't have to add an extra column into my page for my sold. So you can customize those. And I just like as little information, just the stuff that I specifically need. And if it's in the title, I can limit it and scrunch it onto one little section there. It's easier to browse, easier to look at. So anyway. That's just all there was with that one. And again, $30 as I said on this one here. And I talked about, this is a larger size. This is one of the 4x6s, and this is the exact same category as the last one. It's in the California section, U.S. states, cities, and towns under the postcard section. This one went for 20, and I got these in a stack. I bought a bunch of these. And it's an oddball one. I actually had an offer on a second one. I have several of these. The offer on the second one was half of the offer on this one, so I just countered back at 20, which is what I sold this one for. And I'm sure if I just let it ride for a month or so, it's going to sell at 22. And I've got several more of these in a couple different designs. It's California. It's an oddball place. It's, a lot of people don't even know what this is because it's been closed down for years. So, probably 70s or 80s on this one, maybe even 80s or 90s even. But these will sell based on the content, where it's at, the type of thing it is. So anyway, that one was a pretty good seller. Now this one here, this person, I talk about this all the time. Every week I show you something that, a person bought multiple of that item from me. One person bought several. Now this person bought 3. I waited till all the offers come in because I saw one. I waited, as I usually do. And then he sent a couple more, and I waited 6 or so hours. These have been up for a while, so I wasn't worried that some other offer would come in. I just want to see if maybe he was going to put another offer in before I accept it, because the more they buy, the better I'll accept the offer, a lower offer. And this person just put in 3 offers, so I took them at $10 a piece on these, so $30 from one person. I've got maybe $1 total into all the items purchased. I've got maybe, out of all 3 of those listings, like $1.80 into listing, all 3. So I've got $3 or so into the actual items themselves with the listing fees. I took $30, so after fees and all, I made over $20 profit on just these 3 little pieces of paper. Now these are smaller than even the standard ones, so these are small ones. You can see by the size here, only a couple inches across, a couple inches tall. And again, same person bought 3 of these. Same section, as I said, for each one of these under airline labels. I've talked about stuff like this before. This is obviously, again, collectibles, advertising, merchandise, memorabilia, Victorian trade cards, and then other Victorian trade cards. Now, this one's sold because of the baseball connotation in it. Now, the kid's wearing a baseball hat. He's got pants. He's got probably what looks like a glove on his left arm, and it's a baseball in here. And every time I list baseball in the title like this, and it even says, grab the ball, Jimmy. I mean, it's a comical one. This same design shows up on all kinds of different cards in different formats, styles, in full color, and, etchings like this are engraved, all kinds of different versions. This one's sold straight out. First day it was up for $34.50 right off the bat. Any of these vintage baseball card styles go quickly. And almost anything baseball Victorian 1910 or before sells in fairly quick order and for a decent price. Now, this one here is from Uncle Tom's Cabin. Now, I had 8 of these up, and I had them up for, probably 3 weeks at the very most. And I have all 8 of these up for $95. Someone came in and offered me $85 for 6 of them, and of course I took them. That was $510 for 6 cards. The assortment that I got from this was already paid for because I did sell one item out of this lot right after it went up. So out of, say, I think we got like 10 or 15 into this lot, or out of all of these, I should say, all listings, all these 8 items, plus one other item. I had like 10 or 15 into it. We've made over $600 back off that $15 or so investment. I'm not going to show you all of the cards from this set, but just say it was $510. One person, one day, multiple purchases, $85. Now, it's not much of a discount, so I was really kind of surprised. I figured once the third, fourth offer came in, he would lower the offer, but that didn't happen. $85 each one of the cards, so that was a pretty decent day. But anyway, that was a good purchase, good sell for us. So, multiple items. If you've got a bunch that are similar or nearly identical, always list them together. But anyway. Now, again, I haven't showed many records, and I don't show many records, but this is just... I'm only showing this because this was a Halloween. Now, most people might not, think of that or look at the title, Walking Through a Cemetery. It's a dance song. You can hear it on YouTube if you want to hear it. It's an oddball one. Claudine Clark, I've had many records by her. They don't sell for a ton, but this one specifically usually sells higher. That's the top of the line on what these go for. I threw this one out fairly high, knowing that it's not going to sell at that price. I get a lot of leeway. Sometimes you'll get a huge high dollar offer in because someone wants it for the holiday. I put Halloween in the title. That's a good ploy on this one. There's other ones like Dinner with Drac, or Monster Mash. I always list Halloween in the title, especially near the holidays. And that's usually why these sell and when they sell for a higher price. Somebody wanted this for a Halloween party. They even stated that. So this is one of those areas where you've got to be, cautious and pay attention to what type of music it is. If you weren't paying attention or didn't know and just looked this up without thinking about it, you might not have put Halloween, and this probably wouldn't have sold that way. This just went in music records, and then I did the specifics on it. Now these, I always add the specifics, the item specifics on these. I always put that it's a single for the duration. I always put the speed, 45 RPM, the record size, 7 ounces, or 7 inches, I'm sorry, and then the genre, which is R&B and soul. And then I usually add in soul, dancer, Halloween, and the style. And I usually don't put the record label, but this one I happen to use all the features just because I knew it would sell fairly easily. But it was a very good, quick sell. It wasn't up very long at all by the number on it. This was maybe 2 weeks or so. Again, I try to get all Halloween items up, including records. So, anyway. Now, this is an actual steel plate engraving. I sold one to the person at $12.50. And again, 3 times what I expected to get from it. These were average $8 to $10. And I've talked about, again, not everything that I put up this markup. Some items only go a couple dollars over what they're going to sell for because that's just how that category or that niche sells. Now, these are a different story. These have several people that might collect them. Revolutionary War collectors, War of 1812 collectors, engraving collectors, or just military collectors in general. Even some people who are into books will get these to replace a cutout plate from a book that they have. This one I put in collectibles, militaria, and then there's a section for 1784 to 1860, which also going to be separated then into original reproduction, and this is obviously an original. Now, I could have technically put this in the Rev War section, and I've have some of these, I think, actually in there. One philosophy I use on these sometimes is when I've got like 20 or 30 of the same item, I'll list half of the items in one category and then list that I have many other of this item up, and then I'll list the other half in a different category. Like this one could have went in Rev War, and the other one could have went in a militaria in 1784 through 1860, or it could even have went in the print section. So if you got a bunch of items all in the same, like I had a whole bunch of these military copper plate engravings, all about the same size, same everything, bought them from the same place. I paid $10 for like 24 of these. I sold like 7 of them already for, say $10 to $30 or so a piece. So, I've more than made my money back on them, like 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 times my return on my investment on these. It's probably maybe even higher than that, just throwing out some numbers here. But if you've got, say, 30 of these, list 10 of them in one section, 10 of them in another category, and 10 of them in another category. That way you cover all bases on these items. Just make sure in the description that you list you have many others of these up. So if they see them in one section, they'll look and they'll, see sellers, similar items, and then they can sort down to get these specific items. So anyway, that's what I do with that kind of stuff. This one sold for 20, actually. This was up for a little while. I've got 70 cents or so into listing this. $1 or less. I think this actually was a 50-cent item. It's a well-known piece. Unfortunately, the photo isn't so great. You can't really see the markings on it. But maybe you can see them on this one here. No, unfortunately not. That's bad. But anyway, it sold fairly decent. Again, it wasn't up a whole long time. I don't worry if they sit that long. Because let's say you have 100 pieces of jewelry up. One item of jewelry you sell a month is going to pay for all of the jewelry listing fees and then make you a few bucks. We sell, a couple pieces of jewelry every single week. So we get a real good return on the listing fees, and, we pay for everything. So at this point, every piece of jewelry we have up has already been paid for, including the listing fees up to that point. So I'll sell 7, 8 pieces of jewelry, and then we'll make that much is just basically profit of what we sell. So, I'm going to go into some videos here, and I do videos now on Patreon for those of you who aren't familiar, and they're only for Patreon supporters. So I try to go into more depth on some of these, and I'm going to actually have a video coming out in my Patreon covering the philosophy and how it works, and I'm going to actually show out numbers and holler out numbers here in that video. So anyway, there's going to be other things coming up too, but no, I think I showed this in a haul here. This one went in toys and hobbies, diecast and toy vehicles, and then aircraft and spacecraft, and then contemporary manufacturer. I could have put this in one of the vintage manufacturers, I guess, at this point, because it is an original 73 Matchbox. Any of these I always buy. They're marked fairly well, as you can see there. Good condition. Small toy, you can see by my, I don't think those are my fingers, but you can see by someone's fingers on it. It did sell for, I think it took 15 on this. And it was up for, maybe 4 months, so 20 cents in a listing. Really, it's not that, depending on, how my fees are running that month, so anyway. Now these, I've had people ask me, this is just a little label, like a sticker that could have went on a box, or they would have posted out on a street somewhere on a sign or something, but this is fairly small. I took 20 bucks on it. It was up for a little while. Let's see, by the number, it was up for 7 months or so, 35 cents in a listing this. And it sold, as I said, for 20 bucks. I could have sat there and maybe counted. I just took 20 bucks. It's over half of what I listed it for. These run like 8 or 10 bucks in sale prices. That's usually what these little tiny stickers go for. And honestly, it's only 1.5 inches or so tall. It's like 3 3/4 inches or 3.5 inches, I would say, across, wide. So it's not a huge piece. This one went in collectibles, advertising, merchandise, and memorabilia, Victorian trade cards, and then other Victorian trade cards. And any of these stickers either go there, or they will go in postage stamps, Cinderellas, and then, it'll be, or no, I'm sorry, not postage stamps. They will go in stamps, and then there's actually a section just for Cinderellas, and that's where the poster stamps go. A poster stamp is considered a Cinderella. A Cinderella is like a fantasy piece, not actual postage. And there's a lot of these, and you just have to get to know them. By the size alone, it would dictate that this could be technically a poster stamp. But, it's a toss-up on where they sell better. If I put them up in poster stamps, the Cinderella section, they sell about on average the same. So I just shoved them in here. And when you have a bunch, again, I've got hundreds of these style of labels and stickers up in the same size range, probably 500 or 600, honestly. And, I'll list half of those are probably in poster stamps and the other half are in Victorian trade cards. That's just how I do it, so you get double exposure. You always list that you have many more of those items up in your description. Always list that when you have a ton of something up. That way, when they're looking off and checking these out, they'll see, hey, well, he's got a ton more. I collect these. Let me get some more. And that's usually what happens. I'll sell multiple items all the time. Almost daily I sell. And sometimes 3-4 times a day, someone will buy more than just one item from me. And sometimes every day of the week that happens, where they'll buy 3 or 4 different items. And there'll be 3 or 4 people buying that every single day of the week. So anyway. Now, these here I sell all the time. They don't have to be a quick seller. Usually 6 months or so I'll sit on one of these. These are book record sets. There's a record in here as well, too. You can read along as it plays. These I list in the collectibles, comics. This is a Bronze Age, 1970 to 83. Superheroes, and then Captain America. Just like a comic book, because technically it's a comic book with record. A lot of people throw these in the record section. I do not. These go in comics, always. I would always recommend these in comics. And they pay for shipping, the whole works. So, this one was a pretty good one. $17.50 it did sell for, so I was fairly happy on this one as well. And again, it was average about 4 or 5 months this is up. And that's literally how these usually go. And I've sold probably 30 or 40 of these type. There's a huge set of these. Captain America, Shazam, Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, the Super Friends. There's just a ton of these available. Even, non-comic book related. There's Star Wars and... the list of these goes on and on. This was actually a lovely one here. I took 15 on this one here. Average price 8 to 10 bucks again on these. That's what they usually go for. It's a die cut. It's an advertising. It's a paper collectible. It even shows up sometimes in the paper toys section. Some people mounted these, or they were mounted to a stick. This one wasn't. And then they would flutter. So that's why these show up in paper toys. But I listed this in, again, collectibles, advertising, merchandise memorabilia, Victorian trade cards, and then other Victorian trade cards. And that's where, as I said, all of these go. It's a lovely one, though, so I was pretty happy with the price. It wasn't up, as I said, very long at all. Maybe 30 days or less, so 5 cents into listing this. I believe I got this with a lot of like 10 or 12 other ones for like $5 somewhere. I don't even remember, because as I said, some of this stuff sits here for months before I even list it. Now this is something I see that's passed up on even at comic shows. This is technically not a comic book, it's a fanzine. It was, produced in very limited quantity just by some individual who loved the comic books. None of this is authorized. Usually they're not official illustrations. They're just done by anybody. Sometimes they'll rip off original illustrations, but this one went in Collectibles Comics, and then there actually is a fan clubs and zines, and that's where this one went to. And I make a lot of them. This one actually sold for the full price, $37.50. I've sold dozens and dozens and dozens of these, maybe a couple of hundred, these fanzines, and I usually get them cheap because they aren't official and people think they're just junk. So anyway, that's another category you can look for things at. And I do buy them with comic books sometimes too, or in lots from other, like magazine collectors or magazine, or even estate sales are a real good place to find these. EC Comics, if you don't know, is huge. Tales from the Crypt and all. So I do pretty much grab anything that's related to EC. This one was up for, only like a couple hours actually. If I remember, it had some damage. Yeah, it's got some loss there on the face. You can see it. I don't know why they're not letting me zoom in, but right there is some paper loss. There it is. You can see it better right there. That's actually lost to the surface. I'm not sure why, but this is an engraved one. Fairly unique card. I was happy it sold for $37.50 full, straight price, straight out, first day, gone. And that was Victorian trade cards, other as well, too. So anyway, let's show the last item here. Now, this is just put up for religious aspect on it, because I do sell a lot of religious cards. People are hesitant to list these, but I always do, and I always sell them. I've got, probably a dozen or so people that just come and buy just these religious cards. This one was collectibles, again, advertising, merchandise memorabilia, Victorian trade cards, and then other Victorian trade cards. And I sold it for $15, so I did take less on it than the asking price, but it wasn't up very long at all. Maybe 10 days it was up, so that's pretty good. And it's just a random selection. I just throw them together. I've got a couple thousand of these, because I'll buy these from estates of like sometimes if you go to like a rectory sale or something at like a Catholic church or a church sale or something, these will show up. They'll be mixed in with like greeting cards and religious like prayer cards. That's usually where I find these, because a lot of people collected these. And then you just find big collections, and I bought a huge, massive collection of these many times over, actually. So I've got thousands of these. So I just decided I would list, them in 6 lots instead of, trying to get $5 or $6 a card on some of these, because they're not super quick movers, but I do have people who religiously buy them from me. So anyway, that's what I have for you today. Hopefully that gave you some better ideas. And again, I tried not to put too many items that were in the same category, just so you can get a better category idea. And I did include more items than last week, another 10 or so items over last week's, just to give you some better ideas. But that's what I have for you today. Well, there you go. Those are some items that we sold. Again, that's just a small portion of what we sold. Just a random selection from our one store that we do share with you. And it just kind of give you an idea on my thoughts behind it as well, too. And as I said, I did throw in the categories to help those that are still having some trouble picking a specific category. But if you have any comments or questions on that, please add that below and I can address them as we get time. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified when we post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.